Kind of a wild story, kind of a bombshell out of North Dakota of all places. A firm out there called Larson, Latham, and Huettl. I don't know if I'm Huettl. I don't know if I'm
Maybe.
saying that correctly. They sent two associates a bill for underbilling. So let me back up. There was an employment contract given to the employees a few years ago saying that if you don't bill against some sort of baseline level for
Mhm.
us, we will deduct from your salary. These associates signed it, and then suddenly they were being deducted or being kind of asked to pay back some of their salary for not billing enough hours. They took it to court, and the law firm won.
So I will say this: this whole scenario disgusts me. I think it's the best way to put it. That's probably the nicest way I can put it. I have worked in plenty of law firms. I've seen plenty of law firms like what they expect of their associates. I've talked to friends also that work at various law firms that that I have no familiarity with. No one, no one that I know, that I've talked to, that I've even closely related to, has ever seen anything like this. Traditionally, what is standard is you bill X amount of hours. 200 hours a month. That's maybe on the high end, but that's maybe what someone expects, right? If you don't bill those hours, you're probably going to talking to, right? Eventually, if you don't bill those hours for a set period of time, you probably don't get a bonus. If it's really low, you may not have a job. I think in this economy, that's obviously much more of a fact than not. But to tell
That seems pretty.
associates, yeah,
That
no,
seems
keep
pretty
going.
common. Just kind of workload. Like if you're not performing up to task in any industry, not just law,
Exactly.
of course.
Now, there's a reason for it. So the reason for it is partners traditionally are the ones that bring the work. If you're an associate, unless it's told to you in the beginning, right? Unless you're said, hey, you need to be a rainmaker, you need to bring in business, right? Unless that's told to an associate, the default is I am working for a partner or a group of partners on whatever they are bringing in. So that's where things get crazy. So if the work isn't there, you don't blame the associate, you blame the partner. And it's my understanding, at least, this is the argument, one of the arguments posed by the attorneys, is that this was in March of 2020, I think, when this all started to come in place, which we all know listening was the start of COVID. So
Right.
if the work isn't there, you don't penalize the attorney. It just is what it is. So it's an unbelievable case. It is currently on appeal. And I don't know who's going to win, but I tell you what, if you're an associate, I think, Warren, we just talked about this. If you're an associate, look at your employment agreements. Take a look and see if this provision exists. I would assume not, but you can never be too careful, especially when we now know something like this exists and it's been publicized so heavily in Above the Law and certain other publications.
Was this, do you think, like a test balloon in some sort of way for bigger law firms? Like, hey, what if
Gosh,
we
I
kind
hope
of
not.
slip?
Can you imagine this? Like, you are an associate at XYZ super big law firm based out of New York.
Yeah.
You are doing everything you're supposed to do. You are billing your hours. At least you're billing as much hours as you can because the work is a certain kind of practice area and maybe it's drying up.
Sure.
And you are called and told not that maybe there's a reduction in salary like we saw in COVID, right? Like, hey, we're going to reduce everyone's salaries. No, no, no. You've already been paid the money. Hey, you didn't bill enough. I know I didn't give you enough work, but you didn't bill enough. Present it, please. I would like that money back.
That term, not billed enough. Did they outline what the baseline was? Did they
I'm
say
sure
you
they
need to?
did. I will say that, like, commonplace, like you are told. There are some firms that will say it's almost like unlimited PTO. Like, oh, you have unlimited PTO, but really there's a number, right? There's a number people
Sure.
have in their heads. Even at firms that say there's not a billable hour requirement, there is a billable hour requirement. Maybe 150 hours a month. Maybe it's 200 hours a month. And if it's not hourly based, it's money based. Maybe you have to bill 10,000 hours a month. I mean, that's probably much more in tune with a partner that's revenue generating.
Right.
But more often than not, there is a number that is outlined at the very onset.
So just another example of you really need to read the fine print when you're getting hired here and when you're signing things and
Especially now. I mean, I think most of us, especially as an attorney, you don't think that exists in there. You know what
yeah,
industry is, and then all of a sudden you see that, and you're like, that's different.
yeah.
That's not what I'm used to. So I agree with you 100%, Oren. Again, if you're an associate, please read your employment agreements. Make sure that if it has this kind of provision, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm giving you personal advice. I probably would run.
Good advice. Good advice.
Yes, sir. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out also on LinkedIn and Twitter to keep up to speed with what we're doing. Catch you on the next one.